Good day, everyone. This is Don Green, and maybe some of you, or maybe many of you, know me as being a lawyer in California and Nevada over 40 years, and you may know us from our shows on the American Guns and Glory Network, and we're now being produced directly today from Rigel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. As I've been telling everyone the past several months, we are in a very tight and very important election cycle in Clark County, Nevada, especially as far as judgeships are concerned. And as part of this continuing Meet the Judges kind of a program and developments, I'm pleased to introduce today Judge Joseph Sciscento, who's currently Justice of the Peace in Department 2 of the Clark County, of the Las Vegas Justice Court in Clark County, Nevada. And good afternoon, Judge. How are you?
Good afternoon. Okay. How are you?
Judge, if you'll tell the listening and viewing audience a little bit about yourself, but we'll get into it in much more detail. But tell us a little bit about yourself as a Justice of the Peace.
All right. Well, I've been living out here in Las Vegas since 1991. That's when I first moved out here. I passed the bar in 91, started practicing law. And then in 2009, I was appointed to the bench, along with Melanie Tobiasen. We both took the bench at the same time in 2009. I've been on the bench for 15 years at this point, and we handle criminal matters, civil matters, evictions, temporary protective orders, traffic matters. We do a lot of those things, especially courts.
And in the course of this time, so you've had at least a couple of other retention elections in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. When I first got appointed in 2009, we had a run for the first open election, which was 2010. Both Melanie Tobias and I were unopposed. And then in 2012, I ran for the full term. Remember Doug Smith, he went on to district court, so that's why we got appointed in 2009. 2012, reelected for the full term. 2018, unopposed, reelected for the full term, which expires in 2024.
And in the course of this, are there some organizations which provide what are known as endorsements?
Yes.
If we can see the first slide, please. And we have a slide here with Judge Sciscento, and our members of our audience later can look at some of these in greater detail. But we have a number of endorsements on this slide. Can you tell us what the endorsement process is, how they give you an endorsement, and why is it important to your campaign?
All right. In the endorsement process, what you do is they usually contact the campaign and they say that we are set to endorse certain judges or judges for this upcoming election, and we'd like to talk to you regarding this. You have to fill out a questionnaire, usually, indicating your background and how long you've been on the bench, your accomplishments, how long you've lived here, and things like that. Then you have an interview, and there's usually a few people there that are asking questions and want to know your position on certain issues. We're not allowed to disclose too much because we have cases that are coming in front of us. We can't make predisposed or predetermined determination of cases. But you talk to them. Then at that point, they say, we're going to endorse you, and then they send you a letter of endorsement, and we can then put it out on our website and use their logo as showing of an endorsement.
So this endorsement process, Judge, this is not a sure thing for you, is that correct?
No.
So when these people are asking you some serious questions, again, not about specific cases, but they're learning about your judicial temperament,
yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And when you do they ask you about your judicial temperament?
They ask you questions about that. How long you've been on the bench? Have you ever had any complaints filed against you when you're on the bench? Have you ever been involved in any judicial reviews? How many cases have you handled? Cases like that.
Let's talk about judicial temperament. You've been a lawyer now 30 years.
33.
And 33 years, and you've been a judge 10 or 15 years. And in this time frame, would you say that you have what you believe to be a proper judicial temperament to retain your seat in Justice Court Department 2?
Yes. The most important thing a judge needs to do is be able to listen to everybody. And you'll agree with this. When you have a defendant, you're representing somebody, a defendant, a civil matter, a client, whatever, sometimes they just want to be heard. They want to get their side of the story out, and it's important to them. When I did criminal defense work, sometimes somebody would accept negotiations, but they say, I just want to tell the judge what I was feeling, what was going on, or something to that effect. So it's very important that you allow everybody, the defendants, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, the witnesses, the victims, to all get up and be able to give their side of the story, make their case, state what they're feeling. And so it's important that you allow that to occur. And sometimes they want to go on for a while, and you have to sometimes rein them in. But it's very important that you allow people to be heard and let them know that the justice system is here for everybody, not just them.
And part of this process, so is your judicial temperament like an evolving thing, or is it you're stuck where you are, but is it evolving? Is it an evolving temperament?
It involves, you got to keep reminding yourself, this is maybe the first time somebody ever showed up in front of your court on a traffic ticket. They've never been in trouble before. Next thing you know, they're in front of a court. They've got a prosecutor over here, and they're standing there, and they got this judge, and the judge may want to move things along quickly. And you have to stop and slow down and say, you need to make sure they understand what's going on. It's very important. So when you say evolving, it's things that you've gained when you're practicing law. When you've talked to witnesses and victims and other people and the prosecutor or the defense attorneys of what is important to get out there. And so you bring that knowledge with you, but then you have to keep reminding yourself over and over, let them be heard, let them be seen, let them know that this process is for everybody.
And as part of this, I take it that as justice of the peace, that you just don't walk in and get on the bench. That there's preparation time, correct?
Yes.
And I bet you're there pretty early, or you start early at a home office, or you're early at the courthouse.
What we do is our cases for the next day are set up by our clerks. So after we finish our courts on, say, Monday, we finished everything. We've had our preliminary hearings. We've had our trials. Then we go back into chambers, and then we're pulling up the cases and reviewing, first and foremost, any motions that are filed. Any oppositions, we got to read. Then we look generally through the cases themselves. Okay, this case is coming on tomorrow. What was the procedures? What's occurred so far? Is it a bench warrant return? Is it requirements for a status check? Is it an arraignment? And we look at that. We prepare. We review anything about bail settings or things like that. Has bail been set already? Has it been addressed? What is his prior criminal history? So we familiarize ourselves with that, and then we know what's going on with those cases. Then the next day we're prepared to hear the arguments.
Now, in some instances, for example, you have a defendant who's coming before you. He's in custody, and his attorney's asking for bail.
Yes.
And this defendant has just been accused of sexually assaulting a bunch of kids at a nursery school. The next case coming after him is a tax preparer out of Walmart who stole some of the money and the tax returns. When they're coming up for bail, regardless of the crime, is Judge Joe Sciscento going to give them equal consideration, and why?
Each person under our Constitution, Article 7 of Nevada State Constitution, requires us to review individually each decision for bail and grant bail. Bail amount must be given except in murder cases. So we have to make a determination whether restrictions are placed on, but each person is entitled to that individual. And under Valdez-Jimenez,
yes,
that just came in a few years ago, we have to tailor our decisions based on the individuality of the person that's coming in front of us. How much money they have, how long they've been in the community, their prior criminal history, the chances of conviction, the crimes themselves. We take all of that in consideration. The most important, community safety. Is the community going to be safer if we give him a bail that he can make or she can make? Or do we have to set a bail so high that we then determine that this is a no bail case? We understand the person may not be able to make bail.
Yes.
We understand the amount that we set may be so high that they can't make it. And we have to put on the record why we did that for each and every case.
So you mentioned about community safety. How is it that you want to show the viewing audience and the listening audience why you believe that community safety and equal opportunity to be heard are important, or maybe the most important themes of your campaign?
Yes. Listen, I've got 2 kids born and raised here in Las Vegas. I've got one who's in 5th grade right now. And it's important that we go to the park, he's not going to be attacked. He's not going to see some violence or crimes. We go on the Strip. We want to make sure. We went to the Paradox Museum the other day, my son and I. It's this museum of illusions. But we want to be able to walk down the street without being accosted by people. We don't want to be worried about somebody stealing property from us. It's important that we live in a society that we don't have to be afraid and be fearful of somebody coming in and committing a crime against us. So we take that into consideration. That's one of the most important things that we need is community safety, because we want to live in a society that is not one that we have to be afraid of everybody, that we are okay being there and that we can share with everybody else.
Let's go to the next slide. And we have, let's meet Judge Sciscento. You briefly talked about your background a few minutes ago. Can it explain or advise the listening audience and the viewing audience something about Joe Sciscento, the personal, your education, your family life?
All right. I was born back east in Fall River, Massachusetts. I lived there for a few years, so I'm a big Red Sox fan,
Okay.
which always gets me in trouble with the New Yorkers.
Okay.
But I went to Cal State University Northridge. I graduated cum laude from there in 1989.
Tell the audience what cum laude means.
Cum laude is a distinction. I believe it starts at 3.5. Your overall GPA for the 4 years or the years that you were in college, they take all of the classes you have. And if you have a 3.5 or greater, you graduate cum laude. So I graduated there. I got a scholarship to the University of San Diego School of Law. Beautiful campus down there.
Yes.
Jesuits run that. So I went there and graduated in 1991. Practiced and then moved out here to Las Vegas.
But did you go to a special program in England?
I did.
Tell us about that and why that's important to your background.
Yeah, in the summer of, I believe it was 90. You know, it's a while back.
Yes.
But I studied international law out there at King's College in London for the summer.
Was there anyone special who was an instructor?
It was, and he had just been appointed to the Supreme Court. Justice Anthony Kennedy was the instructor there.
He was an associate justice of the U.S. Supreme Court.
At that time, he had just been appointed about a year or so earlier, and he taught the class out there, international relationships. And it was just, our international law, it was just wonderful. I mean, here you are talking to a Supreme Court justice. And then he took everybody, he said, we're all going to go to the pub, we're going to have something to eat and drink over here. And it was so nice because you could sit there and talk to him about different cases that he could talk about. A lot of times he says, I can't speak about that case, it's in front of me, so we're not allowed to discuss it. But talking about his information, decisions and stuff like that, and how he reviews cases, it's really inspiring for judges to understand how much work a judge has to put in to make a determination on a case.
So when you were going to be appointed for a judge and you went for an appointment, you knew what you were getting into, correct?
Back then, yes.
And then isn't it true that when you were appointed by the Clark County Commission, correct?
Yes.
So the Clark County Commission appoints in the various counties the justices of the peace if there's a vacancy, correct?
Yes.
Unless you run on an open seat and then you get elected.
Yes.
But in that process, would you say that process was a very important vetting and process for you to become, for you to even apply to be a judge?
Yes.
And you've been a private practitioner before then.
18 years I was in private practice.
How do you see how your overall experience, private practice, father, parent, community leader, how is it that you feel that is going to translate into your being the best candidate for retention in Justice Court Department 2?
All right. Well, in 2009, two of the judges who were on Justice Court, it was Judge Abby Silver and Judge Doug Smith, went up to District Court.
Yes.
That left a vacancy. So there were 29 people that applied for those two open spots. And what we had to do is we had to submit our resumes, our backgrounds, we had to release our financials, we had to give waivers for medical and all that to these committees. There were numerous investigations, meetings that were open to the public. They would come in and ask questions of us. And it took a few months of vetting for these 29 judges to be whittled down to 6. From that 6, the committee said, here are a recommendation for 6 of the people that should be looked at for appointment. Then it went to the county commission, and it started all over again. County commissioners would call. They want to interview with you. You want to talk to them. They'd send somebody over to talk. You'd have to release any paperwork that you've had, any decisions, any writings that you've done. And you go through this whole process. After that, they then had a meeting of deciding who they want to elect or support as a judge. And at that point, it was Judge Melanie Tobias and I went for the 2 open spots, and we were appointed in 2009.
Again, a very rigorous process.
Yes,
because
months.
Because although, let's go into Justice Court. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then let's go to the next one after this, please. And then we'll talk about, the leadership and recognition. Over the past several years, you have become, you've got some leadership positions in the community and been recognized for your work by fellow attorneys and other organizations. Tell us about that.
I was president of the Nevada Society of Italian American Lawyers. For a few years, I was president there. That was an organization that has Italian-American lawyers in there. We worked with other organizations, the Asian community, Latino community, the black community. We would work together with them. So I was the president of that, the Nevada Society of Italian-American Lawyers, and then the Criminal Defense.
Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice?
Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice.
Weren't you one of the founding members?
I wasn't a founding member.
Okay.
I was on the board of directors.
Board of directors, excuse me.
So I was on there, and we got together and proposed changes to criminal laws and procedures that was helping. Because remember, back in the early days, I know you remember the 8-day kickouts.
Yes.
This is when you would arrest somebody and somebody could stay in custody if they were not able to afford a standard bail that was just thrown because of the charges. People would sit in custody for 8 days with no charges being filed whatsoever. And they would sit there, and then on the 8th day, if it wasn't there, they called the 8-day kick-out. They'd kick them out.
Yes.
Imagine being arrested. You don't have a lot of money. You've been accused of a crime, not even charges filed, and you sit there for 8 days before they decide, well, we're not going to file any charges, we're going to let you go. You've lost 8 days. That was one of the things that the Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice
and Karen Winkler was
yes.
instrumental in that. Yes.
Bill Terry
was
in there, and they came in and they said this is not right. They went to federal court, and there was a change in there. That's why now Justice Court we have IA court. You have initial appearances almost every day. We have
7 days a week?
7 days a week.
Okay.
So people who get arrested show up in front of a judge so the judge can say, all right, do you have charges filed against him or her? What are their background? What is their history, their criminal history? And set the proper bail so we can address those issues. So people don't just sit in there for 8 days. Because people are losing, you're in there for 8 days and you're a union worker.
Right.
And you lose 8 days of work because you can't afford to make your bail, you're going to lose your job. And then the charges don't get filed. It's very important that we have the intervention of the courts immediately to determine that if a charge is filed, then we'll address it. If not, then we have to address allowing them to be released.
And in the justice court system, a lot of our viewing audience and our listeners don't understand. But are there other divisions of the justice court other than criminal?
Yes.
And what are those, sir?
We have a civil division. We have 3 courts that handle civil only. That's eviction, small claims, cases under $15,000. They come in there. You can have some auto accidents, breach of contracts, those kind of cases. We handle those. Temporary protective orders. You have a boyfriend-girlfriend situation where one person is left and they broke up, and the one person won't stop calling or contacting or meeting, showing up where they're at, and so they need protection from the court to say this person needs to stay away, and we have a hearing to make that determination. Which is very important, because if you have one based on domestic violence, as your listeners know, they can take away your guns.
Yes.
They can restrict you from having firearms, and that was just heard. I think it was a Rami case up in the United States Supreme Court.
Yes, Rami back in August or July. Yes,
that just came down a couple months ago, which is really important because here's the thing: is if you are accused, you have a right to have a hearing. So it's important that the judge makes a determination because the effect it has on your ability to maintain and keep your firearms based on just beyond a reasonable doubt. Temporary protective orders, the standard is not beyond a reasonable doubt.
And even though, let's say that a situation comes up before you, Judge, and even though deep in your heart you don't believe this is the correct analysis of the law, you're required to follow what the U.S. Supreme Court and the Nevada Supreme Court presidents have stated, correct? Even though you may disagree.
Exactly. We are required, if we have a case where they've made a decision and this is the procedure you must follow that. Your personal beliefs never come onto the bench. Maybe times at sentencing, you come in, you say, okay, is this person, can we rehabilitate him or something to that effect, or do we need to put him in custody, or what do we need to do? But when it comes in determining and implying the law, your personal beliefs do not come in there. You have to follow the law. It's written and interpreted by superior courts, including Nevada Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, even District Court. District Court comes in and tells us on a case, specifically for me,
Yes.
this is the ruling that you should have made or you need to make. We have to follow that ruling.
And so in justice court with its different divisions and all that, you may have been, and over the course of the time, I take it that you've been assigned to one or more specialty courts. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what are those courts, Judge?
We have a bunch of different courts now. We have DUI specialty courts, drug court, a veterans court, and community court. We had a mental health court that we're trying to start back up again. What it is it's different than just our program, just our regular court system. If we have somebody who's got a DUIs and multiple DUIs and they're facing prison time, there's a possibility if the district attorney and everybody else agrees that we can get them into a diversion program, which means they have to go in for usually 18 months to 2 years of a diversion program. They're on a monitoring, they have an ankle bracelet attached to them, they have to go to daily counseling, they have to show up to court, and in the very beginning they have to show up to court once a week, all the time. They have to have drug test, alcohol testing done, and if they find that they have not been using alcohol, they've followed up on their counseling, they give them more freedom, and after 2 years, if they've completed the program and never had any problems, they can then reduce their matters down to a simple DUI without having to go to prison.
So these programs do work.
Not only do they work, the recidivist rate is about 7 to 10%.
And when you started practicing law, and of course, when I started practicing, we didn't have these specialty courts.
It was Jack Lehman who started the drug court
with
program.
drug court, yes.
And everybody said to him, what do you do? What is this drug court program? He says, we got people come in front of us who are addicted to drugs. We put them in prison. We let them sit there for a couple of years. They come back out. They've got nothing going on. They've still got the addiction issues, and they start up again with drugs. So he says, we got to do something different. He was applauded nationally
Yes.
for starting a drug court program in Las Vegas.
So our justice court system, in which you've been a jurist for several years, would you say that given where we are in our court structure, given our not horrendous, but large caseloads per judge, would you say that this is a job for on-the-job training, or you need experience?
It takes a long time to understand the procedure of law. We just start off, we come out of law school and they throw us into trials, and I think Jerry Spence said it best. If doctors practice law or practice medicine the way lawyers practice law, you would start off with a body, a hill of bodies, of dead bodies, before you finally figured out how to operate. So it takes a long time to understand procedures and problems that occur in cases, and witnesses, and how they work with the case, how the police work with the case, how the district attorneys. It takes years to understand that process. So when you get on the bench, you go, okay, I know a case that was overturned. I was on that case. It was overturned, or I got it overturned because I knew the judge made a mistake over here. He didn't say this, or she didn't say this, or this evidence didn't come forward. But it takes years of being in practice to understand that procedure first. Then you take that knowledge to the bench and you say, I know what occurred out there. I know how it works. I understand the system. I understand how the clerks are important. I understand all of this. And that knowledge then transcends into being a good judge.
And have you presided over civil matters?
When I was first on the bench, we handled both civil
Yes.
and criminal evictions, temporary protective
Yes.
orders. There was no specialty courts, that we separated in criminal and civil. But when we finally made the decision to go have a couple courts go to civil, I did civil exclusively for about a year. So handling only civil cases.
But as far as your judicial temperament, rulings on evidentiary issues, all that was your experience in criminal cases translated over into civil cases. Is that correct?
Yes.
The rules of evidence are identical.
We have criminal and civil, yes. But I practice civil law too.
Yes,
I also
you were
did
a
a lot of
probate
cases. And also just some transactional work
Yes.
and some breach of contracts. So I did a lot of those kind of cases.
So all this, you believe that this experience really helps you, and why, and it helps you to explain to your audience that you are the better candidate. Is that correct?
Well, I feel that somebody who has, 18 years of practice as an attorney in Las Vegas, 18 years before I even hit the bench, 15 years on the bench. I've been, the Review Journal has a Judging the Judges. It used to come out every 2
Yes.
years. They would then, people who appeared in front of you, the prosecutors, defense attorneys, civil attorneys, everybody that could appear, that appeared in front of you would rate you and rank you. Of those rankings, I was always one of the top judges.
That's good.
Always up in the 90s. I think my last one was 89 a few years ago in 2019. But these are people that appear in front of you and say, should we retain this judge?
Yes.
And they give a ranking, and I was always at the top of that.
That's good.
So it's important, yes.
May we have the next slide, please? Okay, now, we'll get back into endorsements.
Yes.
You have the endorsements of the firefighters?
Yes.
Now, everybody sees a fire truck or an ambulance every day. Why is it important to have police, firemen to endorse you? Why is it important?
They are a member of the community that's highly respected. Firefighters are out there saving our lives every day. So please pull over if you hear them coming. Please pull over and give them the thoroughfare. But you go through there, they're part of the community, they care about the community, they're involved in the community, and they see a judge that's involved. They also, if they feel that is a good judge, they endorse him. So I got the endorsement of the Las Vegas firefighters, Clark County firefighters.
What about any of you? May we have the next slide, please? And what about endorsements from like unions?
Yes.
And did you go through a vetting process with these unions?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, same thing. We had to fill out a questionnaire. You submit it. Then they have a review of that. Then they call you in, and you have a bunch of people who are sitting around. You have anything from the Central Labor Commission, SEIU, culinary, Teamsters, carpenters, and they have a committee individually. And we had to go to all these different places, different unions, and you speak to them. They ask you questions about cases, about your background, any connections you have with the unions, and after that, they make a determination of whether or not they're going to endorse you. So culinaries endorse me, carpenters have endorsed me, Teamsters have endorsed me, Labor's 872.
What about LIUNA?
LIUNA.
Everybody sees that. Tell us about LIUNA.
Labor's International Union National.
Yes, aren't they? Didn't a lot of LIUNA members or their organization do a lot of work on Allegiant Stadium?
They built a beautiful stadium.
So
yes.
our people in Las Vegas can say Allegiant Stadium is built, union members, LIUNA,
Yeah.
and and they're endorsing you. That's a very
Yes.
important endorsement.
Labor's 872. I used to represent them when I was in private practice, so I knew them really well and the great work that they did. Tommy White has run a great union.
Yes, he's been there for years.
They built that. They built the Aviators, Las Vegas
Yes.
ballpark. They're going to build the new ballpark there on Tropicana for the A's. And it's just, everybody who comes to Las Vegas sees this stadium, Allegiant Stadium. They go, wow. And imagine, it was these union people that sat out there in the heat, putting them together, building this thing from the ground up. They had to tear, whatever's there out, strip down the land, get down in the bottom, and then build it up there, and then it's beautiful. And they're going to do a great job
Yes.
on the new stadium for the A's that are coming out here.
Let's get the next slide, please. Okay, we have that first slide again. And Judge, parting thoughts. Question: How do you think that your background, that you are the right man to retain in this job at this point in a very difficult time period of in where we are in society?
Yes. I've got a lot of endorsements from many people, different conservative groups, union groups, Democratic groups, all these other places that have come in. These people have come in and they said, we're supporting him. All these different agencies and unions. So that's very important that you understand that somebody who's getting this from all sides is somebody who can bridge the divide that we have. When you have all these, conservative, liberal, all these different groups that are looking over unions, police, prosecutors, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Sheriff's Department. All of them come together and say, we support this person. Because they've seen me on the bench for 15 years. They know my rulings. They know the kind of person I am. They know that I've been involved in the community. I was involved with Big Brothers in 1997. Catholic Charities, I've donated my time there. I was a coach. I'm still a coach for my son for soccer, even though I've never played. I've been coaching him for years at his school in NYA and helping out there. My son, who was a math athlete, my older son, I would help them there. I would go to their tournaments. Anytime we would go there, I would make sure all the kids got rides and everything. So I'm involved in the community. And they see that, and they realize that I'm part of the community. I'm in the community. I've got roots in this community. I've been here 33 years. I've seen a lot of changes.
With your roots in the community and all that, would you say that one of the major themes of your campaign, and one of the major themes of when someone walks into your courtroom, they know they're going to be treated fair, but they know that protection of the community and integrity are foremost?
Yes, that's important because that's one thing that we have to worry about. I mean, my sons, my family is important, as is everybody else. And they want to make sure that they are safe. And that is the most important thing, is to make sure our community is safe.
Thank you. And we want to thank Rigel Studios, and I want to thank Judge Sciscento for taking time out of his campaign, and I'm sure he's got to go prepare for court this week. But we want to thank Rigel Studios for making this presentation. You'll be able to see Judge Sciscento's contact information at the streamer at the bottom of the program. It'll have website, campaign information, and if you want to donate to his campaign, that's entirely up to you. But we want to thank you, and again, thank you so much, Judge.
Thank you.
And Don Green signing off. Thank you.